So hello, today I'm at All Saints Orthodox Church in North Benfleet, and I'd like to talk to you about the church, its history and the area. So North Benfleet is in southern Essex. It's close to the Essex coastline with the estuary of the River Thames. North Benfleet itself lays only 2 miles from Basden, and it's 20 metres above sea level, and originally North Benfleet would merge with South Benfleet. Now the Romans, the Saxons and the Vikings, they all lived here, and they would have taken this high ground. Now North Benfleet, it derives from Benfleet, which means inlet of creek with woods, and Benfleet was a Saxon settlement. So today it's rural. The whole area surrounding. Having said that, it's not that far from Burnt Mills, which is heavily industrialised, but this side, which would be south and west, is mostly countryside. You can see a slight hill here where it runs, like a defensive position, I guess. So originally North Benfleet belonged to Earl Harold Godwinson, who would ultimately become King Harold of 1066, and he was in fact the last Anglo-Saxon king of England. We also know that Harold married Edith the Fair, and she was also known as Edith Swanneck because of her beautiful neck, and they were married on the 23rd of January 1045. Edith was also an heiress to land in Essex, and this would include North Benfleet, and this is the connection. Now when King Harold was slain at the Battle of Hastings, his mother, she pleaded for her son's body to be returned, and she even offered its weight in gold. The Normans under William the Conqueror, they flatly refused, or he refused. And it was then said that, it was then written in legend that Edith the Fair, she walked through the carnage of battle to identify her husband's body, and then it was received, and it received a Christian burial. And by 1086, North Benfleet, where we're standing right now, it had 21 villagers and 18 freemen, and there would be 6 smallholders and 3 slaves. And there were plough teams and oxen for the plough teams. There'd be 150 sheep. There'd be 30 pigs. And as you can see today, it's still rural. Still got livestock. Now, it was owned by King William. And King William was Lord and Tenant Chief of North Benfleet. And the large pond that I've been showing ahead of us in this camera, it's possibly an ancient moat from the Saxon times. And 3 other farms west and north of the church also have moats. And just in front of us where the tree line is, on that piece of land, there used to be a hall, Old Benfleet Hall I believe it was, and this hall was taken down in the 1930s, 1940s. Now the church in question is straight ahead of us, which is the All Saints. And the All Saints is believed to have been built around the 13th century. Although I would say it's highly likely there would have been a structure before that. So we go and have a look. Now if you visit the church, please keep the gate closed, because there's a lot of geese here. They're very noisy. I believe they're very good, make very good guards. Probably better than a dog. So the nave, which is in straight ahead of us, made of ragstone rubble. It's typical for churches of Essex. And originally on the west side there would have been a 17th century bay. Says that on the west wall there was a 12th century window, and inside it's got heavy oak timber framework, curved braces and posts of the previous bell tower. Now the porch, it's been partly reconstructed and it's early 16th century. And I'm afraid it has got movement problems, subsidence of some sort. You can see structurally the old girl has seen better days, and it's coming away from the north wall there. Now if we look inside and see it's also got 16th century outer archway and moulded jambs, and then they finished it off with flint on the outside. And if you look inside you can see the Greek Orthodox style, which is nice actually. It's had a lot of colour. If I can zoom in on that you can see. And also you can see the lovely old windows, and the other one there. So we move on to the west tower, and again you can see some problems there. Now if we move on to the west tower itself, this is actually very recent really in terms of historic side. It's built in 1903, obviously in brick, sandstone, coins, corners. Looks like it's 3 stages in construction. Again, if I come to the west side, you can see up the top there's a lot of dead ivy. It was covered at one point and in state of neglect, and you can see some of the problems poor old church has. A large crack and the masonry pointing coming out there. If we go around to this side, and you can see how it's affected this very structure where it's pushing out the stone jambs of the window. And you can see there. Now it's certainly not beyond repair, but it can either take a lot of voluntary work, a fair bit of money and materials to fix this, but it's definitely savable. And you can see the pointing has come out there, and the very stonework can come out. And again you can see the way the stones are exposed, and some interesting stonework. I'm not sure what that is exactly. But as so often with these churches, they do require a fair bit of maintenance, and I'm afraid money and the cost to repair these churches goes up. But hopefully in time this can be rectified. So this is the chancel, and the chancel looks really good condition comparative to the nave. I guess this has been renovated in a recent century. There's fairly limited documentation on this online, so I struggled. This is west, the east side is very good. The cross at the top looks a bit crook. But anyway, it can be rectified. Cemetery is fairly small actually. If we come on to a Mr. John Cole, was a gentleman that was buried here in 1836. But in 1815, the same John Cole, he marched towards the Battle of Waterloo in Belgium. And he lived a further 26 years, still the musket ball embedded inside of him. His medals were given to All Saints Church. And the memorial read, John Cole, a soldier of the 2nd Battalion of Grenadier Guards, at the celebrated command, "Up Guards and up them," was wounded by a musket ball, but heroically preserved till victory. Now in the 1950s, the electricity came to North Benfleet, and there was a John Wernman, and he recalls that in the late 50s he would get to All Saints about an hour before service to light the oil lamps that kept the church warm in winter. And I'm here the 21st of January 2022, and it's 2 degrees. It's a bit nippy, and I guess inside the church right now it would also be a bit nippy. Now the Reverend Hughes would arrive to church on his green BSA motorcycle with his wife on the back pillion, which would be quite a sight. Now inside the church is a 15th century piscina, and beneath that is 13th century block of stone. There's various important people from the area who were buried from the 17th century. And in the tower itself there are 2 bells by Robert Burford, early 15th century. Now Robert Burford was an early founder from London for bells, and when he cast the bells for this church, Henry IV of England was on the throne. So these are some of the oldest bells. in this very church. Now Robert, like his father, was a master bell maker. In 1416, only 2 years before his death, he served as a master of the founders. His workshop was in St Mary Axe, and then he moved to St Botolph, Aldgate in London, and he died in 1418. He had no children and he was married, and he left a considerable amount of money in his will to build a bell tower at St Botolph's Church in London. Now, All Saints Church was declared redundant in 1996, and in 2009 the Greek Orthodox community began its quest to find a church of their own. And they worshipped in Vange in 2010, in Billericay in 2011 and 2013, and after planning and negotiations they were finally allowed to hold a service right here at All Saints on the 2nd of March 2013. By 2015 they were granted full parish status, and Alexander Haig became the founder priest. Now right here where we're at the moment, on this very spot, in June 2020, in June 2020, there was 5 reenactors, and the reenactors were in Napoleonic period costume, and they played the bugle in memory of John Cole, who was at Waterloo. And I guess they were here because of the coronavirus affected travel in Europe. In May 2021, vandals wreaked havoc, driving a tractor outside this church and smashing the John Cole Memorial from the Battle of Waterloo. And if I show you, the memorial is still here in pieces, which is a great shame that somebody, a group of people, would do this. Totally unnecessary. But moving forward to today, 2022, we have a Father Jacob Brighton Cross, and he's the parish priest, and every Sunday the Holy Temple, as the Greek community call this building, is open. All Saints is a lively and friendly parish church set in the Orthodox Christian faith, and visitors are very much welcome. So I hope you enjoyed that. Give you a bit of insight into this church. It's worth a visit. It's quite isolated, and it's quite a surprise as you drive up the ancient lane and go through this group of houses, which I guess is where the original village stood, and past the duck pond, and then come here. I think this looks particularly nice on a sunny day. Thank you very much.